So we're let's do this. It's possibly more interesting. Yeah, I decided to call it the 100 year. I tried to come up with this short, Y2K letters, but I couldn't really. Y100C or something. So the question is then really, what prompted this is really, I got this question and I talked to someone about sort of the current sustainability and sustainability not only in the short term, like how we survive money-wise or otherwise the next couple of weeks or years or something, but more how will curl survive the demise of all of us perhaps, or sort of, the really long term, and like 100 years. So we're 27 years old now since curl, which is a fair amount of time, right? It's 27% of 100 years. So, but that's still 26,000 days left until we're 100 years old. So,
do you mind if I ask you a question? I don't want to break your flow.
Shoot.
Okay. Sustainable as in, say, this is the geologist in me. Do you want curl to be found 100 years from now, been discovered, or do you want curl to be used throughout that 100 years?
But I'm not trying to answer the question if I want it to be used. I want it to be. So for me, sustainability is for it to remain as long as it should remain. Work as long as it should work, or as long as there's a demand or desire.
Cameras were developed a long time ago. We use cameras today. Yeah.
Yeah, but so let me get back to the sort of. So there is the eternal question about bus factor and everything. Sort of when we all go on holiday one day and never come back, will curl survive and everything? I think that's a question we have more or less answered. I don't think we have a bus factor problem, and I also think that bus factor in this case is sort of more of a narrow time problem. I don't think that's sure. It would be if few key persons in the project would disappear today, it'll be an impact on the project, but I'm sure it could survive. Maybe it'll be a problem for a while, but in the grand scheme of things, we're talking years, right? Even if it would be a problematic year, it wouldn't be a sort of death blow to the project. So we have a lot of different things in the project that we could sort of discuss sustainability around, like code, for example, with how is the code, the state of the code, and do people understand it? What's the state of it? And then we have perhaps more higher layer, understanding the architecture or the vision of the project. Perhaps not as many people care about that. We have infrastructure. We have things around the project like passwords, accounts. We have actual intellectual property, even though it sort of takes something to just admit it, to just use the word. But we do have a domain name, for example. Someone owns the domain name, and that stuff has to keep working. And I also like the word degraying, so I had to include that in this list. So we are not degraying in this program, in this project. So we are getting more and more gray over the time, and that is probably one of our most fundamental challenges, actually. So I would actually say that. So code architecture, vision-wise, that's the sort of easy part, the technical things in curl, and I think that is easy, and we have most of that documented and it's available, and that's not so hard. You can always ask an AI, it'll explain for you. But sustainability around infrastructure and all the other things, we're probably in more of a shaky ground, really. A lot of that is based on persons and sort of ownership. I own a lot of this. I have the password, I have accounts, but if I go away, sure, it'll fix itself, maybe, but it'll be kind of complicated. Like, what do we do with a domain name if I would vanish tomorrow and I would just shut it down? It'll take a while to fix that, and stuff like that. And the graying part.
So go back just one moment. You immediately dismiss those first two things, but I think you do that far too easily, far too quickly, because I think one of the reasons that Curl has been so successful is because it's had a BDFL who has had a vision and has the ability to set the tone of the project and move things the way it's supposed to. And that's not necessarily a given. If something happens to you, someone else will be able to do that.
No, I think you're right. I think it's sort of there has its upside to be nimble, right? And it's one of the benefits of having a BDFL project is that it's so easy to make decisions, right? Because it's if I want to do that and no one sort of objects, we just do it. We don't have to have a votes or organizational things, and so yeah, it certainly has its upsides. And doing things otherwise, involving organizations and having a bigger group and everything, that's more complicated and might slow down and might not even help. So I agree. But I'm more than, when I sort of made these slides, I was more thinking like those next 63 years, right? So I might not be around in 63 years. So probably, I don't know, possibly I won't. Let's play with that idea that I won't. So that's certainly, I presume that most of us won't be here in 63 years. Curl up. 20. Jim is going to be here, but except for Jim. So I in this sort of thought experiment, I just tried to sort of consider the aspect: would curl, should curl survive that long, and what would it entail? Sort of what's the problems here? And of course, I mean, it's quite far away. It's not a problem we need to solve today or tomorrow or anytime soon. So I just thought about the challenge and where we are and sort of what needed to be done, and probably things like infrastructure would be needed to be handled somehow differently than today, and accounts possibly also, or at least we would need to sort of at least consider how we would handle transitions, or how we would do at some point when one of us just takes off, falls off, runs away, whatever, takes a vacation and never comes back. So we don't own trademarks or copyrights on anything, but we have a logo, right? We have a domain, we have other things possibly. I have a whole box of mugs in my home. Or maybe not that big problem. But anyway, and then of course, one of I would say that possibly one of our problems, at least sort of looking back 10 years, looking forward 10 years, maybe one of our challenges is certainly to make sure that we're not all, the average age of us shouldn't be 10 years older in 10 years. It should ideally be less than 10 years older. But so finding new contributors is a challenge for every open source project pretty much. It's certainly a challenge for us too, and we're a lot of old people. I don't have any solution to this. I don't have any answers. It's just sort of an observation.
No pressure, guys.
If I look around here and see the top contributors, I agree that don't look like they're in their late teens, maybe. But some people here have not been a contributor for 15 years.
No.
So
yeah, you're right. But okay, yeah, you're right. So I shouldn't really mix having been contributors for a long time. That's not the same thing as being old.
New contributors.
Because I think we're pretty good at attracting new maintainers who are already old.
Yes, but if you get people who have, just to pick around on them, 15 years to go in their career, and you find a few of those every 15 years, that's fine.
Indeed, yeah, indeed. So exactly, it doesn't have to happen often, and it doesn't have. I mean, you don't have to actually be 18 to be. I mean, the older we get, the older you can be to also be considered young in this context. And also, yeah, sure. So I mean, and again, it's not really a big problem right now, and it won't be a problem for a while either. But it's more of these. It's more of it's just sort of and here I only took this aspect of age as one of sort of the diversity aspect. I mean, we have a lot of other diversity problems. Right? Look in this room, I can figure out at least one other or three. So that we're all very similar, and that's not good for a project like. It would be much better if we were a lot more different, all of us, including me. So because of different mindset, different ideas, different experiences, and different sort of views on life. So that would also be sort of sure we don't need that many just to survive as a project, but it would have been much better for the project if we were a lot more different, including young people and other ways of having a much wider diversity. But then also sort of, that's opening up for a lot of other sort of just, I don't know how to solve that either. I don't know how to solve any of this. I'm just.
Well, industry, the universities have the same problem.
And the entire sort of.
Right, but some places have it, like, it's better than the new stuff that makes it better. Like, you can't just say, oh, everyone has it. But some people have it much worse, right?
Right, exactly. So it doesn't help us that others also have it. So, but sure, we're not alone in having this problem or challenge. I just think it's good to recognize that we have the challenge and we should just be aware of it and try to overcome it when we can, and not sort of and recognize that it's there. I don't know what more to do about it. But in general, in the general scheme of things, since I got this question when I talked to someone at Foston about sort of what will happen to the curl project in the future, I actually think we're in a pretty good shape because we have everything pretty much at least in order. We have our ducks in order. We know how most of this stuff is. There are no big surprises. We have everything sort of in control, even though there are challenges here. And over time, we might need some ways to sort of arrange for certain things. Like, sure, I'm BDFL, I've been that for quite some time, right? Maybe at some point we should consider doing it something else, just to make it survive better into a future. Or, owning things, maybe we should have something that owns things like the curl domain and whatever we want to own. Yeah. At least the Open Collective, the curl fund at least, is sort of co-admin by several people of us, so it's not depending on the single individual. But I think these are just questions or ideas, thoughts that we should at some point do something about. And then some point is actually quite far into the future. We don't have to do that now, not next year, but we just need to have this in the back of our minds because 26,000 days to go. At some point we need to consider those things. Do I have anything else? Yeah, so there are some risks then going. So I asked actually my followers on Mastodon about what's the potential risks for the curl project going forward. And a surprising amount of people mentioned these things from the bottom here as the sort of the risks for the future. And I think that's more an evidence of the general gloom and sort of state of society today, that sort of everything is hopeless, we're going to die anyway. So possibly we will all die within 100 years anyway, so then World War III or global warming will kill us. But I figured those are sort of, I don't think we can fix that. But otherwise,
also it doesn't nearly affect just curl, right?
No, but it's sort of, and as long as if they are our greatest risks, then we're fine, right? Because we can fix them, and we will all be victim of them anyway. So then we're good to in some aspect. We're good because we're gonna die anyway. So basically these are 9 different risks that would sort of prevent curl from actually existing in 100 years. I'm sure we can think of a few more, but I think these are the some of the more realistic ones. And I actually think that, I don't think no maintainers left. I don't think that's a very big risk as long as there's a demand and use and there's replaced by alternatives. I imagine that it could happen at some point because things change, right? If everything needs to be Rust or hardware changes drastically. So 63 years into the future is quite a long time, right? What can change in 63 years? Pretty much everything. So possibly we have a completely different reality at some point, and then curl will be totally pointless or useless or replaced. So, but I still think that all these things, at least I think they are, of course, the further into the future we get, the harder it is for us to predict if any of these are actually going to happen. But potentially they can, and the further away we can't really tell, right? But I would say that at least short term, none of them seem particularly sort of likely to actually happen. So I think that curl has a future for quite some time still, even though maybe not 63 years. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I also think many of these are like risks in a sense that like curl is not needed anymore, as opposed to it is needed, but it does not work for some reason. Like replaced by an alternative means that like someone just created something from some perspective better.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then we don't need curl. But I think what should be more discussed is like we need curl, but it's not being maintained.
You're right. That's a good differentiation. So exactly, because no maintainers left. That would be more of a problem if we still want it to be there, but no one is there to make it. If it gets replaced by an alternative, then it's actually what we all want, right? Because then we want the alternative because it's obviously better, because that's what we want. So then that's not actually a problem. It might be a risk for the project, but the project isn't really worth keeping if no one wants it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, you could have new networking based on quantum entanglement, for example. Yeah? Or that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, what's the success of curl? Is it when we don't need it anymore, maybe? Is it, why would we want curl 100 years from now?
Yeah, but that's a good question. But I'm not really arguing for sort of, curl has already has success, I think. We don't need to keep proving it. So if it doesn't serve a purpose anymore, and if no one wants it, then surely we shouldn't do it. Right?
Sure, but you can look at this another way, is that if we're designing if we're saying, let's assume the problem will still be there, or some version of the problem we can recognize that curl has potential to solve. Like, is the right way to do it to continue with curl, or maybe the right way is to kill curl very soon and do something different? Like, I'm kind of always thinking, what's more, impose our context on the world for the next 100 years, and the how is that, or maybe the curl team should just change into the curl academy and just deal with kids, if we really want 100 years. I'm kind of splitting hairs there, but
yeah, I guess it depends on sort of which leg you want to stand on. I don't think sort of aiming for 100 years is not a sort of a goal here, really. It's more of a necessity. If it's there, we should make it work.
continue to be relevant.
If it's relevant, it should remain relevant. If it's and not the, sort of. I don't particularly need it to be 100 years old. If we come up with a better solution tomorrow, we should go with a better solution.
If curl is still needed, try to find a way that the curl project itself is not the problem.
Right, that's a way to phrase it. Yeah.
But are we part of some ossification process that we're not aware of ourselves? Like, are we so into it that we don't understand the limitations of it?
I'm sure we are. I mean, it's hard to put yourself outside of your own situation, right? It's hard to look at the world entirely from the outside and not getting. So I'm sure the more ingrained and the more deep into the details you are in this project, the harder it is to actually see it objectively from the outside. Why are we doing stupid things? So maybe over time we're stuck in doing stupid things that we should have stopped 10 years ago, and we should have done it in a modern way, which everyone else will do, and then things are different. I don't know. I think it's fun just to exercise my mind to think about. I don't think we're anywhere near any of that, and I think we're doing a pretty good job at keeping up with how things do change.
I agree. I think for the next 25 years, I can definitely see curl being used. Yeah, definitely. Without even if the whole world changes and there is new hardware and all this type of stuff, that momentum will be like COBOL.
Yeah, there's also that even if a few of these happen, it'll take forever to curl to completely vanish. Right. So even though if there would be a perfect replacement tomorrow, curl would still survive another 20 years, right? Just by legacy installations. So just sort of that period is almost 63 years just by it. So.
$1 million for someone who still knows the curl command line.
We'll have it ingrained in some rocks too.
The biggest
That's why I asked about, the point is to make sure someone discovers curl a million years from now. There are other ways to do it.
Yeah, we need the man pages in rocks.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's what we need.
Alternating magma plates is the.
That's what we need the money for to get those done. It's expensive.
I think clay tablets is the longest surviving record.
Yeah. It also has a charm, right? Clay tablets. So yeah, 20 billion installation. So I don't know. Is that the peak, or are we need more planets to install the current more places?
Well, we need more like fake people. We need more sock puppets. We need more, AI.
Yeah, we should make AI statues into
Yep, definitely we need that. What do I have that again? Yeah. That's the same slide I have for. I think these are just sort of leftovers. Sorry, I don't think they were included. Meant to be there. So yeah, this is actually I missed this from my previous presentation yesterday because I was going to say that I think the future is still actually much more curl, because I think we're going to do, because the trend as per the last 10 years is that we do everything more power, more network, and more internet, because for some reason everyone wants to do that, and they should all have LED lights and sort of be flashing and run on batteries and stuff. But that means that more stuff are going to run internet stuff, and that means that I still think that we're heading towards more curl installations. So I don't think we have reached peak curl yet. I think we're actually quite far away from that. I don't necessarily think that this is a sort of a really sane or good trend. I just think this is a sort of the commercial trend of things over the last years. Possibly what could slow this down is sort of when we are introducing things that hey, wait a minute, we should also consider security, CRA, lifetimes. Someone needs to take care of all this over their lifetimes as well. We can't just ship broken crap to everyone. We need to make sure that they're secure and you can update them over time. I think that could possibly slow down it a little bit, at least initially. But I still think that that's a general trend. So like this, basically, more curl everywhere over time.
Is that a mascot?
That's the mascot. Yeah, exactly. That's my. It's not an AI generated robot. So
that's what Daniel will look like in.
Exactly. That's what I will look like in 100 years. In a tomb.
maybe somewhere in there.
So that was curl in 100 years.
Basically, for curl to not survive the 100 years, more than 750,000 installations per day have to go away.
Yeah, but I guess that's actually easily done, right? Because some technological changes happen quite rapidly, and sort of we forget the old really fast.
They keep on promising us the giant meteor, but it just doesn't come.
Yeah, it's missed recently, right?
Ah, there was no meteor in the risk. Just global warming and World War III, no meteor.
Yeah, World War III we had already when I was young. So.
The main problem there is also you can't do the quantum entanglement thing because the queue names for protocols are taken already.
Yeah.
But will we have IPv version 6?
It's never a thing.
That we'll still battle with that in 100
Yeah,
years.
probably.
Yeah. So where are we with the things?
All right.